Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoy our shows, please like our videos and subscribe to our channel. And you can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. It's the 27th of February 2019, and our guest today is a former Catholic nun with a very dark past as a targeted individual with biological weapons, nano-technology experiments. She's also a victim of sexual assault by members of the Catholic Church she belonged to. Sister Keri Burnor. Sister Keri Burnor, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the show. It's great to be doing this interview with you. And how are things in Texas?
Excellent. And thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that.
I know you have a lot of really eye-opening, controversial, and very, well, dare we say, fascinating, but really horrific stories to tell. You have had an extraordinary life as a Catholic nun, and then suddenly becoming this whistleblower after you discovered a lot of really terrible things that happened to you. And first of all, please explain to people that maybe doesn't know this. Please explain, what is a targeted individual?
Oh, of course. That is where one has been selected and put into a nice little database somewhere, usually through some intelligence community of sorts, the dark side of it, where that person's going to be used in some sort of testing. They'll be used as a subject for testing. Maybe it's technology, maybe it's this or that, sound weapons or whatever they can deploy. And they're going to go after that person, follow them 24 hours a day, and basically make their lives a living hell. And the structure, the precipice, or the means by which that person would live, they could also pull all of that out from underneath them, one by one. And now we've got very advanced artificial intelligence algorithms, so it's like not even difficult for them to do all this stuff. It's usually through a SCADA, which is a supervisory control acquisition data, whatever it is, okay? It's basically a machine that's programmed to operate all on its own with minimal, human interaction.
Where is that machine? Where is it located? Do you know that?
Well, there's different ones all over the place. There's not just one single one, okay? But it's basically, nowadays, I basically transition it into the AI systems because that's pretty much what we're dealing with now. I personally was targeted as a result of having brought my allegation forward about a priest who sexually assaulted me, grabbed my left breast. The thing just opened a huge can of worms. I tried to resolve it in-house, privately, the way Christians are supposed to deal with things. And I was trying to deal with it in a Christian manner.
So please take us through what actually happened. Was this let's say, a good friend to you or somebody you were working with when you were in the Catholic Church as a nun?
He was serving as a spiritual advisor, a spiritual confidant at that time. So there was a level of trust, obviously, to meet with him. And
you were pretty young at the time, huh?
Yes, I was in my early 20s. And this event happened in 2001, August 23rd. And so basically the long and short of that is it ends up going into court. A priest friend of mine called the district attorney's office. They opened a big, it was a high profile criminal case. And I had testified on behalf of the Commonwealth as a witness to what occurred with me. And the case was thrown. And I had the evidence of that. And I went against the attorney who was supposed to be on my side and found out that bottom line is Vatican politics were playing out what they wanted in the court systems in Worcester, Massachusetts. And all of this you can find on my website, clergyvictim.com, transforming victims into victors, and just go through my story. It's all there. You got the news articles.
You took that priest to court and accused him, of course, of sexual assault. But how did that happen? Were you in your nun habit when that happened, when he touched your breast, or?
That's correct. Yeah, in the course of a meeting, in the course of the spiritual advisement meeting that we had.
And could you feel for a long time beforehand that he was very interested in you sexually?
It was not interested in me sexually. At least I don't think so. I don't think it was, because it was very fast. I believe it was about control and about power in making a statement. And when I found out that this happened to somebody else 10 years prior, that's when I had to bring forward the allegation to the courts. Because
this particular priest also assaulted other girls and boys, or just other ladies there?
He was preferential towards the ladies. And I'm only aware of one other woman, Miriam Singleton, who came forward, and she even tried to make this whole thing go away. We're trying to deal with this in a Christian manner, but somehow, once it got into the system, they used it in order to quell the several other victims who were victimized by other priests at St. Joseph's Abbey. There wasn't just one.
There were many? How many?
Well, I have a list. I have an entire list of the priest and the victim.
So there's a lot of people.
There was enough. There was a few pages of that. Yeah.
Wow, that's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's when I realized, okay, this was a sex circle going on up here.
This is not just one priest, no.
No, it's not an isolated event. And over time, that's when I started to put the pieces together. There's something more going on here. And later I discovered that St. Joseph's Abbey, they had essentially a CIA front, okay? And what do I mean by that? When you look into the history of St. Joseph's Abbey, and it's extraordinary. Frankly, it's a beautiful building. I have to say the CIA have tremendous taste in stained glass windows, in beautiful architecture. You have to give them a thumbs up on that. But so
it's good to see the positive in all the negative, huh?
That's right. At least they had good taste in architecture. So here's the deal. There was a fellow, and again, like I have to say, this is so important. You know, I'm going to share this with you. I feel like this is so appropriate to share with you.
Bring it on.
Oh my goodness, you're so fun.
Likewise.
Thank you. St. Joseph's Abbey, I don't have 1 ounce of hatred towards them. I just don't, okay? And that's a gift from God. Trust and believe. There's been many days I've woken up in the past and I'm like, I just want to wring their little necks. But push comes to shove, he released me of that for a bigger purpose. So I'm going to share this with you, that before I get into the nitty-gritty on how the Abbey I had discovered was a CIA front. But before we go there, you can get my book, Divine Challenge, on clergyvictim.com. I'm going to read you something that is so, it moves the heart. And I thank God for giving me this experience. And this is regarding forgiveness. Now, when Father Joseph Chu Kong and all of this, that's the priest who grabbed my left breast, who sexually assaulted me, God gives you, this is what I believe in my heart. Some people get this gift, okay? And I asked for this gift because I didn't want to hate anybody. And certainly in the next life, I don't want him to go to hell over something like this either. I want him to know that God forgives him. I forgave him.
So you do believe in a next life, reincarnation?
Oh, yes, I do. Absolutely.
But how does that go hand in hand with the Christian faith?
Oh, interesting. Well, let's stay on this channel because if I go down that road, I have 2 questions I have to meet. To your expectation. This one first, and then we're going to go into the other one on the front, the Abbey front, the CIA.
Yes.
So page 157, for those who purchase the book, hint, hint, purchase the book. Okay, on Monday, November 22nd, 2004, I then had this very unique experience. That morning, there was a sense of urgency. There was an unsettling, wordless state that my soul fell into. There's no time more difficult than in a state like this where it becomes nearly impossible to function reasonably, not to mention being able to function at all. This state is like falling into an abyss, falling into the jaws of the essence of chaos itself. To remain calm, to not allow oneself to be consumed in fear is a very difficult endeavor. I did all I could to not call Grace at 3 a.m, my friend Grace Haggerty.
So her name was Grace. It was not that you were saying Grace.
Exactly.
Great.
But increasingly it got worse and there was absolutely no relief. I sat on my bed next to my own devotional wall and clung to it. I was sweating profusely in my insides. Everything was shaking. I was actually fearful that I was going to die that day. Around 8 a.m, I called Grace, my friend Grace, and told her it was an emergency and begged her not to tarry but to come immediately. She came. She could tell from the look on my face that it was very serious. I could not even cry. I wished for some sort of release, but there was none. I told Grace to open my address book and I showed her the emergency line to St. Joseph's Abbey. I asked her to call that number and begged her not to put Father Dominic on the line with me. Father Dominic Ledby, who's the second man in charge at the time, I believe. I told her to ask Father Dominic for Father Dominic. She believes Father Robert picked up the phone, and it was he who went to go get Father Dominic. Once Father Dominic was on the phone, Grace tried to describe the state I was in to Father Dominic. I told her to ask about Father Joseph Chukong, the one that did the thing with me. Father Dominic told Grace that it was that very morning that Father Joseph was rushed off to the hospital. I asked her to get details. Father Dominic revealed that he was at St. Vincent's Hospital in Worcester and said to Grace that he was not allowed to receive visitors. She handed the phone to me. I told him I was unable to speak. Father Dominic continued to reveal more details about Father Joseph's condition. I told her to hang up the phone now. I was in my pajamas still. I told her we needed to go to the hospital immediately right then. Otherwise, I can truly say I was going to die. I told Grace that I would take all responsibility and begged her to just go through every red light. She was in tears seeing me this way. We rushed and could only focus on one thing, getting to the hospital. We prayed nonstop. My mouth was dry and becoming more parched. I was writhing in pain. My stomach and my legs and all my vitals felt as if they were closing down. I could not stop shaking. Once we got into the parking lot, I told Grace that I would respect Father Dominic's wishes, but that she must go in, and that I knew she would find Father Joseph's room. She was concerned that she might not find his room. I handed her my favorite rosary beads given to me by my twin sister when she was at Aruba. These rosaries were my favorite, and they had white glass beads. I told her to tell Father Joseph that I forgave him completely, and that he could go to the arms of the Father knowing this. My heart was racing. My palms were so sweaty. I stayed in the car and Grace ran in quickly. She was dressed in her work clothes as a nurse. Somehow, while sitting in the car, I was rocking myself back and forth and shaking. I could see and feel Grace making her way through the hospital. The second she went into Father Joseph's room, I felt it and knew that something very special was about to take place. My whole being went limp like the flip of a switch at the exact time Grace entered Father Joseph's room. I waited for Grace to come back to the car. She came in rejoicing with good news that everything opened up for her without difficulty, without struggle. She felt she had been directed in a divine way for this heavenly appointment. She had found Father Joseph's room. He was barely awake, but he recognized her. He seemed happy and surprised to see her. She told him my message of forgiveness, and she told him I was praying for him. She told him I was outside in the car and was concerned for his well-being and soul. Father Joseph mentioned that he was not allowed to see me because of his superiors, but he did receive the rosary as Grace put it under his pillow in the hospital room. Grace reassured Father that I respected the will of his superiors and recognized that I personally did not have to see him face to face, but that my message of forgiveness would be just as effective being delivered by grace in my place. Father Joseph expressed gratitude as they parted, and she could see tears in his eyes and that he felt the genuineness of this gesture. So now check it out, okay? I'm going to show this in the screen because I want you to see it. This is an email from Father Dominic, November 30th, 2004. I'm going to put it right into the screen so you can see this is a real email from St. Joseph's Abbey to me. And now I'm going to read that in conclusion to this story.
Well, just to know, the email, was that written by the guy who, the priest who assaulted you?
This was by his superior.
His superior, right.
Yeah, excellent for clarifying that. So, dear Sister Keri, subject, Father Joseph. I'm writing to you, inform you that Father Joseph died this morning, taking us all by surprise. Yesterday, the hospital wanted to put him on hemodialysis and move him into the ICU. It seemed to us that the time had come to bring Father Joseph home to die peacefully. There was consensus that the hospital had done all that they could for him, and that any further invasive treatment would only prolong his dying, not his life. We had him home by Vespers, which is night prayers, and after Vespers, the community gathered around his bedside for the prayers for the dying. He was alert, glad to be home, and eager to go home, to the spiritual home. We hoped that he would have a few more days with us, since often a patient with complete renal failure can live without 72 hours without the dialysis. But after a relatively peaceful night this morning, he slipped into a coma, and then around 10:15 with the abbot and 7 or 8 of his relatives at his bedside, he went home to the Lord. I tell you all of this because I know how concerned you were about him this past week. In order to allow time for his relatives and monks from around the country to get here, the funeral has been scheduled for next Tuesday, 10:30 a.m. You're most welcome to attend in the side chapels. And then he goes on talking about how there's going to be several other people there from the Vietnamese community. I want to thank you for your prayers and for him and for the community. He completed his journey on earth, and now from heaven, I'm sure he will help all of us with his prayers to remain faithful and to rejoice always in the mercy of God. Be at peace and rejoice with him in the Lord, Father Dominic. So I share that because forgiveness is absolutely critical to being free. And here it is, we're supposed to be arch enemies. Me against St. Joseph's Abbey, this big, David and Goliath story. Yet there's love here, you see? And so the whole key to this is that we need to become lovers of souls. We've got to love people's souls, all right? And this is a gift, and God gives this gift, but being free of hatred is the key, okay? So I shared that with you.
And we want to get a little bit into your history of how it all started. In fact, you said that when you had the calling to become a nun, a Catholic nun, you said that you fell in love with the Catholic Church. How can you fall in love with an institution like that? Please take us back a little bit of your early history.
Okay, definitely. When as a young child, we grew up, we didn't have necessarily a particular faith. We weren't reared in a religion, so to speak. However, my Auntie Mona would take us to church a couple of times, maybe like for Christmas or for Easter ceremony. So there was a deep respect for that. So I longed for something when I encountered a Roman Catholic Church for the first time. There was something ancient about it. There's something old. There's something, obviously I have European blood, and so there's something in me that was just longing for something that was old. And encountering the Roman Catholic Church, it wasn't the Protestant churches that I was exposed to, where you had people, lifting their hands and praying out loud. To me as a child, I thought all of that was funny. And so I would laugh, I had an instance way back when I was 9 years old, and I asked God to reveal to me, who are you? Because my mom was, going to punish me. And so she says, you better go to your room and you better pray to God. So I go in my room and I'm like, okay. If I pray to Buddha, Allah's going to get mad at me. If I pray to Allah, Jesus is going to get mad at me. If I pray to Jesus, then Vishnu's going to come and get me. And I was very aware of other religions when I was little. And somehow I was just very, very diverse in that way. So I said, whoever you are, God, I'm not going to pray because I don't want to get in trouble. So I need you to reveal who you are to me. And sure enough, that same year, as St. Paul says, whether in the body or out of the body, I don't know, God knows, I had this interaction with the Christ. And I didn't study. I didn't read the Bible. I didn't do anything to know what his circumstances were the night before he was going to be crucified. So when I was there, he was in this trapped in this dungeon setting, and he was chained to the floor. And I knew, just somehow I knew he was going to be crucified the following day. So I said, you can come with me. I can get you out of here. You're going to be crucified tomorrow. I'll help you escape. And he had a very serene, calm face. And he's just like, he's like telling me in his own way without speaking it out loud that this is what's supposed to happen. This is part of the plan.
So did that happen in a dream that you had?
A dream. Yeah, exactly. In a dream or a vision. That's why I can't say that I know.
Were you sleeping?
It was more than a dream to me. It was as if another world opened up to me. And I basically went back in time. You know, if there was a way that you could get in a telephone booth and go back to the time, that's pretty much what I feel has happened. So I went to touch this fellow's leg, and he was luminous. He was radiating light, and he had white garments on. And I went to touch his leg, and I knew in that second that this was God. Very, very powerful. It's just so beautiful. So that's when I realized, I'm like, God answered my prayer. Now I know who he is. And I said, whoever that guy is, that's the one I want to marry. And I was, like
Really?
I said, I was 9 years old. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So if I'm 9, I'm like, and I'm growing and I'm learning things and I'm watching Sister Act, and I see these movies where the nuns would be dressed up in their bridal gowns because they're going to quote unquote be brides of Christ. The only thing I could think of when I was little was I have to become Catholic because they're the only ones they're the only religion that has a way or a means for me to marry Christ.
And little did you know that you would be the one to actually play the main role in the, let's say, the horror movie version of Sister Act, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Please. So actually, that was like a calling for you at the age of 9?
Yes. I feel that's when all of that was unfolding. And then, of course, in high school, you know, how, you know, serendipity works is I end up having a bus stop, and the bus stop is at a Roman Catholic church. So the priest was coming in the doors, and I was on my way running out to the bus because I was inside the church. And he's like, oh, well, I haven't seen you here before. And he says, do you come to church here? I said, no, I go to the Grange Hall once a year, you know. And he laughed. He thought that was funny. And I says, well, I want to be a nun. I says, I want to be Catholic. And he's like, oh, and he was shocked. And I said, well, I want to be a nun. And I think in order for me to be a nun, I have to be Catholic. And I said, I have 15 minutes after school to do it. He laughed at me. He's like, no, it's a relationship. So he had me join the Rite of Christian Initiation for Adults. I went through that program for a year. And in my high school in 1993, April that same year, April 10th, I was confirmed and brought into the Roman Catholic Church officially.
How old were you at that time?
I believe I was 17. If it was the last year, I was a senior year in high school. Now, for those who want more information on my story and a lot of detail of it, it's outlined in my book, Divine Challenge. You can get this at www.clergyvictim.com, Transforming Victims into Victors. And what it is the clergy abuse of a hermit nun and its 15-year cover-up by monastery and church officials. So you can find that there, and it has all the detail of these stories.
Yeah, and we also want to hear a lot of those stories in the show today. But actually, were you at all inspired by watching the Sister Act movies, now that you mention them?
Well, the Sister Act thing was just kind of like a confirmation that, oh, there is a place that I can go to express this desire to commit myself to Christ in that sense. So Sister Act, I thought it was funny, and it definitely helped me realize there was a church that I just had to find it. So in my conversion, immediately thereafter, I ended up going to a convent within 1 month of my graduation. And the canon, the priests called Mother Teresa Benaway in St. Benedict Center in Still River, Massachusetts, and said, hey, we've got a convert here. You're a convert to the Catholic Church. I think you're going to understand where she's coming from. And she wants to be a nun. And Mother's like, well, bring her down, and if we will try her out for 2 weeks, and if she likes us and we like her, we'll keep her. I said, perfect. So I went there, and they all fell in love with me, and I fell in love with them, and I was their little pet wannabe nun, a little kid, I was 17, 18 years old, and all these nuns are like 60s, 70s, and 80s, So
Wow.
there's just a life that I think I ended up bringing to the monastery there, to the convent.
Wasn't it difficult for you at such an early age to say no to all of the things that a normal kid or a normal teenager is going through? Hormone changes and everything, love interests and relationships, or just going out in the ordinary daily life and take part in that?
Well, actually, it would be harder for me if I didn't follow what was in my heart. I didn't have a tug of war in that arena. When I grew up, somehow, I was aware. I mean, I dated guys, quote unquote. We would call it going out with the guys. But I always told them I'm going to become a nun. This was a platonic relationship agreement. And so I was very, very friendly with guys, but I've always said that I'm going to preserve the kiss for the one I'm going to marry. And that's going to be Christ someday. So we all agreed, me and Eduardo Santiago Correa in high school. That's what his name was.
That's quite a name, huh?
And it was a very beautiful interchange that we had, because he was struggling with his studies, and I helped him, and he helped me because I wanted to learn Spanish. So he passed with high honors for the first time in his life, and we were awarded by the school a lobster dinner because of our helping each other. So this was a really powerful thing. And all the Puerto Ricans loved me in high school. They're like, oh, Jesus' wife. You're Jesus' wife. So they thought I was cool,
Wow. But when you take a vow to become a priest, or in your case, a nun or a monk, you're not allowed to have sex in any way, I assume.
That's correct.
What about these natural desires? Because that's part of human nature. This is what is legendary about specifically the Catholic Church, not being able to have a human relationship in that way.
Okay, so you're going to go straight to the good stuff. Okay, I get it.
Let's go for it.
When we speak about the typical natural urges that people grow up with, if you're normal, you're going to have these things. That means you have a healthy body. That's a good thing. We want healthy bodies. The root, this is where I believe the Roman Catholic Church has departed from the original Christian belief set. There's an original Christian belief set that the word orthodox means right teaching. But if you go deeper past the word of orthodoxy from right teaching, it goes deeper into the understanding that one is on the journey to becoming whole, to becoming mature, to becoming one. And a monk, the word monos comes from the word oneness. And so when we discuss sexuality, the word sex comes from the word to separate, to cause, for the man and the woman, they are now distinct and separate, and then they become one. That's the whole goal. That's the command. That's what was before the fall, that mandated by God. This is a drive that God put in us, and it's a good drive, and it's healthy. And that when people don't know why they're designed and what we're designed for, because our bodies we have senses that reach out. We don't have eyes that look inside of our skull so we could see our brain. You know what I'm saying? Our whole being is oriented outwards, okay, for communion, which means union with another.
Point of view, point of attention.
Yes. So
you don't believe in that way, the way that the Catholic Church is is separating the sexes?
The way the Roman Catholic Church today has, in my opinion, has lost its path to understanding what the early church would say about these things, what the Orthodox Church has always believed.
Why do you think that sex is not allowed in the Catholic Church? And in fact, a lot of sexual scandals are coming out of the Vatican and particularly the Catholic Church.
In Revelations, it says in the end of days that basically there'll be a church that withholds people from being able to get married and things like that. And this has never been the tradition of the church. It's always been that if you're going to get married, you're going to get married. That's a sacrament. That's a holy thing. That's an outward sign of an inward reality, an eternal reality.
But what is your philosophy about this? How do you understand it now, being a former nun? You took that vow of chastity, and you said yes to be married to Christ.
That's right. Absolutely. So we'll go back just a little bit to the first question, because you mentioned something really powerful when you asked, why did the Roman Catholic Church cause people to not be married? Namely priests, and what was the reason behind that? In the deeper examination around estates and land and property, this was all about a land grab. They don't want a bunch of priests having kids and with their families and having the land and the riches and the money being allocated to them. They want to harvest all of that for themselves. That's what this is all about. In my opinion, that's how it all started. That's where it all went wrong. So, and then to answer your question, what I believe about this stuff today is I've maintained my marriage, quote unquote, to Christ, my bridehood, my connection to Christ, but I've divorced the Roman Catholic Church in order to return back to the Orthodox faith, the original faith as was founded, I believe, by Christ. And my belief is that I'm going to be coming up with a book when I get time to do it, so be patient with me. This is called The Emergence of the Deus Sexual. The return to pre-fall intimacy with God for both married and monastics alike. And of course, you've got the monks praying with the fire, the flames, and then the married people. And then, of course, this love always points to this love. This love is going to be forever. And there's a union that we do enjoy in heaven. And marriage doesn't stop here. It goes to the next world.
But what does faith, and strong faith, as you obviously have, what does that have to do with not being married to a person in real life? Somebody you could share your life with?
There's no opposition, because it takes, in my opinion, it takes just as much faith to love this guy who you have to wake up to, who might have nasty breath in the morning, okay? There's equal amount of faith for a married couple, and they don't say until death do us part, okay? This marriage, this love carries itself to the next world.
But does it have to be to death do us part? It can be a love relationship that is beautiful for a while. Hopefully it lasts.
Forever. I believe in my heart that this union is forever, ever, ever eternal, because death do us part is not in the ritual for the Orthodox Christians.
But isn't that the same as saying that you will stop yourself from a certain kind of happiness that everybody wants and needs? It's natural drives and also desires, of course, but also the feeling of wanting, a love relationship, to be close to somebody.
In terms of becoming a nun or a monk, are you saying that's a denial?
What is your philosophy now that you're not a nun?
My belief has not changed. I believe 100% that it's a calling. And just like in the scriptures, Jesus said there are eunuchs that were made so by men, there are eunuchs that were born that way, and then eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of God.
So you're still living under the Catholic rule in that way?
Under the Orthodox. Under the original. And this is I basically married Jesus, but I divorced the Catholic Church. I said no to them, and I kept the goods, okay? Because the Jesus I know, I thought Jesus came from the Catholic Church. He didn't come from the Catholic Church. The holders of the truth of the faith go all the way back to Orthodoxy. not the Roman Church. The Roman Church is a fabrication that was created in 1054.
But isn't it a certain kind of, let's say, mind slavery to be kind of holding back all of your life with what you really feel that you want, maybe a close relationship to somebody else?
I feel that desire myself. This is the difference. Actually, these are all good questions. I feel that for Christ, but if someone else feels that for another, they would be amiss. They would be amiss in following their true calling, because if that's what they feel, they need to follow through with that, right? So for me, I'm not denying myself of anything. That's the good part. There are people in this world that are called to union with the divine in this particular way, in a monastic way, as a monk, as a nun. That's not something new. That's over 2,000 years of this, and in terms of the Christian way of expressing that. So yeah, this is not about denial. And if a nun or a monk wants that kind of a relationship and they deny that and they go and become a nun or a monk, that to me, that's like, wait a minute, wait. You know, that's like, I believe a nun and a monk should have the calling to become a nun and a monk, not to be someone who's attracted to someone else. You know, to me, that's like, no, you should go and get married if you're attracted to somebody.
But why all of these restrictions when it has to do with, if you're really a believer and if you believe in a certain religion? That's also a big question, though. But if you believe in a certain religion, why does that have anything to do with not being close to a live flesh and blood human being? Sexually also.
In the earliest beginnings, there's no dichotomy. See, there's a place for everybody. In the Jewish faith, there wasn't a place for eunuchs, okay? If you didn't have children, you were not fruitful, you were basically cursed, okay? So it was when Jesus came in, he opened the doorway for people that would live a life of prayer. And now St. John the Baptist was the first monk, okay? You know, so that's during the Jewish time. But my point is this is not about denial. This is about expressing the true who you are. And if a nun and a monk, if that's not really what they want to do, they should not be doing it. That's why you're running into the sexual problems. That's why you're running into the deviations of nuns, monks, and priests assaulting children, because they're not paying attention to what their true calling is. There's an injury there. So
could it be that when the natural human desires are being restricted so permanently after taking the vow, that Catholics who've taken these vows are committing these acts of sexual violation or even assaults out of some kind of desperation, of frustration? Not that that justifies anything, but could that be the reason, the answer for that to happen? Or are a lot of monks or priests or even nuns, I don't know, who are within the Catholic Church, could they be planned as some kind of disguise, being these like predators, and then they can work more in the dark? Both scenarios, I believe, are legitimate, and in the sense that if sexual energy is inverted upon itself and there's no expression for that, then now we're going to be running into serious mental issues, because we were created for communion with another. That's clearly stated in the Church Fathers' teachings and the Mothers. So when it comes to, I believe it was by design. Of course, in Revelation it says, clearly, in Revelation it says that there's going to be, in the end of days, a church that's going to force people to not be able to be married. It's going to happen. So I believe that on the level of, spiritual health, that, that there are positions for these things. These things do happen as a result. And demonically, that would be a perfect plan. If I were a demon, I'd be planning, how could I hurt someone's soul really quickly? Well, a demon would think of it that way. They would say, okay, well, we have to invert that energy. We have to suppress that energy. We have to find a way so that person can't be creative.
And so I hope all of that is making sense, because the calling has to come from within. You can't have a rule put on top of you. That was not how I was called. I was in high school praising Jesus in the hallways. That this was not a rule that I put on myself. This was something I desired. Every calling for a nun and a monk should be that way.
So why do you think all of these terrible things are happening within the Catholic Church? We're hearing about it more and more in the last few years. It's been incredible what skeletons have come out of the closet, also in the Vatican. Is this, in fact, a more sinister agenda?
At this stage in the game, we've reached to that level. Now, in the beginning, in the year 600, there was a, let me see if I can find a quote for you, because I think you'd benefit from this.
Or just your opinion. That is also really what we want to hear.
Well, basically, this is the thing. In terms of, now again, there's a lot of good Roman Catholics out there. I know a lot of good people that are wholesome and love God, okay? So when I'm talking about this subject matter, it's not for purposes of, disrespect to someone's belief. But when I look deeper into this subject matter, and I asked the same question myself, I asked, what happened to the Catholic Church? Why did it go astray? When did it go astray?
Or was it always like that?
No way, it wasn't always like that. Well, the wheat grows with the weed, okay?
But how do we know?
Well, you have good and bad. You have history, and then you have the other side of history. So
in the medieval times, the Catholic Church were basically the rulers in Europe and did horrendous things to people.
Absolutely. This is a very powerful book. Let me see here. This guy used to be a Roman Catholic priest, okay? And he went into the Vatican Archives. And he was going in just for another project. He was going to look up, he was going to do studies on the origin of the faith and the lineage, okay, from Peter to Licinius to Linus to all of these, basically the apostolic succession. So this guy, this priest, Abbé Goutet, goes in there, he does research, and then he finds out in the Vatican Archives.
Which is the library underneath the Vatican, right? The secret library.
Absolutely, the secret archives. He goes in there and finds out that the whole papacy, the way it was constructed, this was in the late 1800s. This book you can still get. It's called The Papacy. Abbé Goutet, I probably said his name wrong, but now he's Father Vladimir. This was in the late 1860s. He's obviously dead now. But he found out the truth that this whole papacy thing was a fabrication, and it was never like that from the very beginning. And it's so powerful. So they kicked him out of the library and said, wait a minute, we know what you're researching. And they wouldn't give him access any longer. And he went off and became Orthodox because he realized my church has completely lied to me about the most fundamental thing. Thou art Peter, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And that's the quote they used to justify their supremacy, the Roman pontiff's primacy, okay?
Very few people have access to that library and those archives underneath the Vatican. And God knows what secrets are hidden there, huh?
Absolutely. So that's just one of them. That's just one thing. That's just one powerful thing.
But why do you think that all of these terrible things are happening in the Vatican and in the Catholic Church, churches all over the world, also in America, where you had this experience, of course?
Well, we have a wonderful book out and I don't have the book on me, but it's called The Windswept House by Father Malachi Martin. He's a former Jesuit priest in the Roman Catholic Church who served on Vatican Council II. And he saw things the way they really were, so he basically documented everything, and he told the whole story, but he didn't put in the real names. But there's a key, you can look on the internet.
Did he witness dark rituals, satanic rituals, you mean?
Absolutely. Yes, and this is when the Freemasons completely completely took 100% control over the Roman hierarchy and the Curia and all of that.
When you say the Freemasons, you don't mean the lower levels, the let's say the good, nice Freemasons that we know there are a lot of who's doing charity work, but we're talking on an Illuminati level.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. In 1773, Adam Weishaupt, basically, who is a Jesuit, see, there's a lot of awesome history here. Pope Clement XIV kicked out the Jesuits out of, I think it was 80-something countries, 86, I can't remember. And you can look up the list. Spirituallysmart.com has the whole list of all the countries that they were booted out of. And so in 1773, what they had to do is the Jesuits had to have a way to function in other countries, but they were suppressed by order of the Pope, because of them meddling in governmental affairs. So at that stage, they infiltrated the Masonic lodges and expanded the orders. They expanded the degrees, okay, all the way up to 360 now. Okay, we've got it all. I mean, Leo Zagami gets into all this far greater than I would, but, you know. So anyway, the Jesuits, that's what happened. They took over the lodges all over the world, and they were using the lodges as their front and as their cover because they were suppressed. And of course, you know, the following Pope put them back into power, of course. So essentially the Jesuits took over the Masons, and which are total top level Luciferians, okay, and then they completely took over the entire Roman Curia and the Roman prelature, or prelates, or, you know, the political system as to how the Vatican operates. And so why are the bad things happening? Well, it's all been foretold that these things would happen all the way back, as I just read to you, in the year 600, you know, or thereabouts, you know, the 6th century. When someone goes wrong spiritually, there is a physical thing that happens. So if someone goes off or does something that's off spiritually, the root that happened was Rome then initiated the Crusades right there after that. They started to initiate the Crusades after the 1054 split.
But doesn't that make you, as a very strong believer and a former nun, question your faith and question God? Because if something that sinister can happen and still take place for hundreds of years, forming actually also the New World Order structure.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Could that be allowed to happen if there was a God in the way that you believe in? Okay,
wow. Okay, you're going to go deep on me again. Okay, so a lot of people think that God is the one. You know, so you know what? You just asked the same question someone on Facebook asked me the other day. If God loves us, why does he punish us so much? All right, we're going to get back to this. We're going to get to the roots of this issue.
But what do you think, Keri?
What I think is what these guys say, because they say it even better than I could say it. So I'm going to read what they say, because I like what they say. These guys, they say here, we became the inheritors of the curse in Adam. Certainly we were not punished as though we had disobeyed that command along with him, but because he became mortal. He transmitted the sin to his seed. We were born mortals from a mortal, Saint Anastasius of the Sinai. Now we go on further, and it talks about, you know, bottom line is we were made good. God is good. He didn't create evil.
So why so much evil in the world?
Because we're in a system now where we're locked into a dimension right now where that was introduced through mankind, through Adam. And because Adam did it, it doesn't mean we're all evil. It just means that he became mortal, and his seed, after his seed, became mortal. So we're in a fallen world as a result of him opening Pandora's box.
So what are your thoughts on demonic entities, which some call archons or jinns? The Muslims call them the jinns, and the Gnostics call them the archons, demiurge, and Christians call them demons that sometimes appear as angels.
Well, we're called to bear the kingdom within. So they can take over whatever they take over, but it's only by way of permission. We're the ones who grant permission. I can tell you in my life, I ain't granting any permission. No. All right. Now, here's what I mean by that. I have been hit up with the most intense weaponry that the world could ever offer anyone. Okay. And you know what? You're asking all good questions. All right. I've been there before. I struggled. I kicked God in the kneecaps many times on these issues. All right. And so I get it. I get where all these questions are coming from. But bottom line is, it's not God. It's not God's fault, right? This is the world that we've been dealt, and how do we have to respond to the world that we were dealt?
The people who are Catholics, that's one thing. And then the Catholic Church is a whole other thing.
Totally different. Absolutely.
So what you're really saying is that the Catholic Church, and you were a part of it, is a deception or a lie?
Well, I would say basically that those representing, meaning the prelates and the Pope, you know, this current Pope, and so on and so forth, that they are basically sheep's in wolf's clothing, just like what the Bible says. And that Joe Sixpack, he doesn't know any better. He's got to go to work. He has to work 9 to 5. He's got to keep his job, pay his credit cards, pay his mortgage, you know?
And he's listening to the mainstream media and everything we are being fed through that.
Well, we're hoping that he changed the channel and went to Lucas Alexander. Okay, we're hoping that he changes the channel and puts you on and wakes up to these things. And it is happening, okay? It is happening. But the bottom line is this death and evil, and God didn't create death. God didn't create evil. He didn't do any of that. That was actually found in the heart of Lucifer when he fell. So the answer, the key to all of this is to actually make a stand and say no. And when I was a targeted individual, I'm the first one known with physical evidence. There might be other people that are healed, but I've never seen stories where here's the before picture and here's the after picture and I'm healed. And not only that, that's all by the grace of God. I say this, trust and believe.
All right, great. What happened? How did you react when this incident took place with this priest grabbing your breast? In the moment, how did you react?
It was a shock, and my whole career, I knew it was just completely, all of my pursuits were focalized to one point. And the point was, okay, become a hermit, get approved by the Bishop of the Diocese of Worcester, but first, before you get the approval, which I had the blessing of the bishop to begin.
It was your faith that was shaken, right? More so than just him touching your breast.
Yeah, he went and grabbed it real fast, but I knew that when he did that, there was a rift, that there was everything I fought for was now in question. Mm-hmm. Everything I wanted to do was in question. And trust and believe, it was 7 years of hell.
Had you never heard of any of those incidents happening to other people, even before you went into the Catholic Church?
I have heard of them, but unless it happens to you, it's like, oh, well, you know. And the same thing with chemtrails and Morgellons and all this other. None of this ever matters until it happens to us and we start scratching feverishly. You know what I'm saying? And so this is where we need to develop our compassion skills.
So luckily, nothing worse happened, even though that was enough for you. But some people have been raped and whatnot for continuously, actually.
They were used as sex slaves. I know people personally that were used as sex slaves.
In what way? Can you talk about that?
There's specifically a priest that I exposed way back in 2008, Father Edward John Malin, and he was involved in rituals. I mean, absolute rituals.
Satanic rituals?
Oh yeah, he was asking for menstrual blood, urine. I mean, gross. I mean, not nasty.
He asked for that. In what way? How? Okay, please explain this.
Well, we won't go into a lot of details because it's so gross. I mean, I got sick after this person told me it was more than one person.
So what do they do? In what way do they do that?
Well, let's just put it this way. Use your imagination, and bottom line, it's really grotesque and nasty. It's a very low level vibration. I don't think we want to go there in this conversation.
But it's used in a ritual. That's what I want to get to.
Is to harvest or take power away from that person's soul, to take an imprint. And their DNA is a part of someone's soul. It's a part of them. So when they take their DNA, in the ritual, what they're doing is taking that person's power more and more and more away from them, so they are left with almost in a zombified state, to be real.
They don't just take it, but they and put it on display or whatever, but they actually consume it, or what?
Yeah, they consume it and they do other things with it in order to become one with it.
So this is happening. And this was in America.
This is in America, absolutely. And so, yeah, these are the grotesque things that were going on. And that wasn't just one victim. There was many others that I know personally. Let me show you a picture, because this picture here caused me to have my alarm bells go off, all right? And like I said, the CIA have very good taste in stained glass. However, their taste in this altar might not be the same. My opinions on this.
So you're saying it's the CIA?
This is my point. There is a man named J. Peter Grace, Joseph Peter Grace, and he is buried up at St. Joseph's Abbey. And Joseph Peter Grace, let me just see if I could get you the picture here to the best of my ability. That is the altar. This is the sanctuary in the altar, by the altar, and then the walls are the beautiful side chapels at St. Joseph's Abbey. And this is in Latin, so I'm going to read to you what this says about this fellow named Joseph Peter Grace. Altar at St. Joseph's Abbey memorializing the Nazi J. Peter Grace. We're going to get into that in a second. To the glory of God Most High, in honor of the Blessed Virgin, Mother of God, Mary, Father of our order, of sweet memory, founder of our abbey, Joseph Peter Grace, and his wife, Mary Margaret. Now, let me read to you the affidavit that was written, just a few paragraphs, so you can see what the relationship is between me, St. Joseph's Abbey, J. Peter Grace, and Satanism, okay? Now, I'm not saying every monk up there is a Satan worshiper, so don't go throwing eggs at that beautiful abbey. What we need to do is deal with this on a mature level, and hopefully someday I hope the monks will develop into that. I hope they will.
So the monks are involved as well?
The monks, absolutely. The ones back when I was going through these experiences, the monks themselves, there are good monks and there's bad monks, okay? And but let me go to this thing so I could just get the things off the list that you want, and then we'll continue to go on. It says here, page 4, July 2015, the Notice to the World affidavit by Dr. Hildegard Staninger, specifically in Keri Burnor's case, nanotechnology, that's what she's talking about, was used as a bioweapon, a chemical weapon, a weapon of mass destruction with specific parameters to give her rabbit fever, leukemia, breast cancer, and a colon cancer, as well as the use of nanosilicon, CMOS, or MEMS, neurospheroid technology, used to violate her privacy, to damage her permanently and cause her death. Keri Burnor was perfectly clear of this nanotechnology, and since recent tests of porphyrins, other tests pending as of the date of this affidavit, has returned to show a presence of specific nanotechnology composed of hexagonal carboxyls that are used specifically to make porphyrin nanotubes used in hexagonal waveguides, as reported in phase 1, etc. Special request analysis dated June 6, 2015 were reintroduced back into her system. That she never gave permission for this. That the use of it was for torture, terrorism, and hate crimes, reasons against her due to Keri Burnor's unswerving faith in Christ without adherence to the Catholic faith tenets. Recent conversion, 2008, to Orthodoxy, a heretical act as defined by the Roman Catholic Church, or dogmas, as a means of retaliation by those who she witnessed against in a criminal trial in 2003 against a priest of the Cistercian order in the Catholic Church. She's talking about Father Joseph Chukong. The earmarks of Jesuit attack are also seen in that Fordham University pioneered the use of nanotechnology and is one of the leading authorities on the subject. That according to Keri Burnor's testimony, transcripts of the trial case number, etc., Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Joseph Chukong, that both priests who testified against her were either graduates, affiliates, or professors at Fordham University. Having heard Keri Burnor mentioning her concern that this St. Joseph's Abbey in Spencer, Massachusetts was involved, and that this same abbey had a founder by the name of J. Peter Grace, who is also known as one of the leaders involved in Project Paperclip, an operation that furnished a way to assist German doctors of the Third Reich evade the Nuremberg trials while also assisting with protecting those involved in mind control experiments. German scientists in 1934 developed nanotechnology as microbeads and other related technologies, as stated in Nano-Technology, a gentle introduction to the next big idea by Mart Ratner, etc. Appian believes Keri Burnor to be of sound mind and that her concerns are legitimate. Appian has personally seen the Department of Homeland Security monitor meetings outside of the building where Keri Burnor was present with Appian on Saturday, December 7, 2013. So that's the connection. When I brought this altar up and I exposed this for being on the Trappist, website for their beer, because they sell beer, they shrunk they first took this picture down, then they put it back up, but they shrunk it down so you couldn't read the verbiage, the lettering on that. So that why would they try to obscure that image, right? So all of this to say is, as I thought, I moved away from all of this stuff in Massachusetts. I went to live in Texas, and I started to study private remedies, different kinds of law, different methods of just how the system works, because I was still perplexed. How could I not win a court case if I told the truth? And so over the years, I learned that there's a private side and there's a public side. And that the masters of this kind of thinking is the Roman Catholic Church. There's a public policy that's false and a secret policy that's true. So there's always a secret and a public side going on at the exact same time. In my experience, when I started to feel things were going on strange in my body, I had a surgical procedure done. That's when I noticed that there were things going on that were inexplicable for my situation.
Yeah, how did you know that you had become a targeted individual? How can anybody know that?
Well, that's the thing. I have, if you want to look up my uncle, Kevin Burnor, his testimony on the ITNJ, and also I did one on YouTube interviewing my uncle about his story. My uncle came in 2004 the first time, and then 2006 is when I got involved. And he basically alleged to my family, which my family thought he was nuts. They said he was alleging that he was used in some sort of experiment, being chipped against his will, and he had the proof and he had documents. And my sister said, we're going to have to put him away. And I said, no, you don't. If he's telling the truth, you're going to hand him over to the lion's den over there.
Was he microchipped?
Yes, absolutely. So I can.
How?
Under the auspices of a colonoscopy. It's not funny, but that ain't right. You don't sear chips to someone's colon when you're trying to go in and get a colonoscopy. So everybody needs to be careful about these things.
Really?
Yeah.
Ah.
And there's other chips put in him subsequently and so on and so forth. But when I came across that information and I did a 6-week investigation, helped Congress open a file for him to try to figure out what was true. I think it was McGovern's office in Massachusetts. After 6 weeks of investigating, calling the Veteran Affairs in Puerto Rico, speaking with the top officials there, they said, your uncle's not crazy. This is happening to him. Here's the results. It shows metallic things going on in the ileocecal valve.
Why did anybody choose your uncle to become a targeted individual?
Well, that's the thing. My uncle was in the military, and they believe military is the property of the government, no matter whether you're on or off duty. It doesn't matter. And he was super smart, and he was very capable in his own way. And he speaks Chinese or different dialects of it. So I've got to believe that they just picked him because he's got some interesting things.
Why choose some people and not others?
I don't know. I think they just pick interesting people. I don't know. There's so many. Everybody that they pick that I know of has a deep spiritual background in some sort, some way, shape, or form. They have some sort of capability, a gift that they have. They have knowledge that they're not supposed to have, or well, everyone's special, but that's just the way I looked at it. And I've seen, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 cases in the past, I don't know how many years.
What is the purpose for doing that?
to perfect their technology, to torture the person, to try to get them to destroy their faith, to destroy their lives. It's certainly not to build the person up. It would, they're not knocking on the door saying, hey, let me give you money.
But to serve what purpose? I mean, you were not particularly dangerous at that time, or were you?
Well, I don't know. I didn't think I knew anything, but Dr. Hildy, after the testing, she said that it's your love for Christ that's a threat to the Jesuits and to the Vatican. And I said, that's crazy. There's so many people that love Jesus. I'm not a nun anymore. I'm behaving myself, right?
But millions of people believe in, especially in the Catholic faith. You can't target everybody who's a believer in God.
Exactly. I don't. They pick people and they pick them for specific reasons. One could be research and development. The other could be for threshold of pain. The other could be for whatever. There's just so many reasons. But each one I've known, each case that I've ever looked at, they are indeed special. Every single one of them. Every single one. So I don't know.
So talk about your case, why it happened to you. Was it because you took this priest to court and didn't win the case?
Well, that's the thing. They obviously presupposed that I knew something I didn't know that I knew, all right, about this J. Peter Grace. I didn't think that J. Peter Grace was such a big deal.
So J. Peter Grace was a Nazi scientist that they brought over with Project Paperclip.
He was tied into the inner workings of government. He wasn't the scientist himself, but he would harbor those people, okay? And help them get to places of safety, quote unquote.
To develop mind control and MK Ultra.
Yes, and experiments on kids and the whole 9 yards. Technologies, all of that, dealing with even, you look further into WRA, Grace Company, and there's definitely ties and connections into bioweapons and stuff like that. But so as far as my personal experience, when I was having symptoms that reminded me of my uncle, I was like, okay, I've got to dig out Uncle's file, because this was in 2012. So I went to grab his file, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be in Missouri next couple weeks from now, so let's see if I could meet up with Melinda Kidder and have a private investigator just take a look and see if there's something going on in my body. And sure enough, after 3 hours of testing, there were signals coming from my body to the environment. So I was like a walking, talking cell phone.
And they could see that on this what was it, some kind of device or?
Yes, she had multiple devices that she used. And hers was like the Seiko, the X-Tech, and all that. I get into all this detail because in the before and after pictures, having been through all of this, I reverse engineered what they did to me, because they're planning on doing this to everyone. It's not just to me. It's to the purposes of this. Melinda found a signal. Melinda said, go see a toxicologist. I saw Hildegard Staninger. Hildegard said, well, you got nano-tech in your body. I said, well, what's that? She tried to explain. I said, that's way over my head. I said, just here's my credit card. Fix it. Can you fix it? She's like, well, yes, but it's not going to be fun for you. You're going to have to do some cleanses and a bunch of things. I said, well, tell me what to do and we'll get it done.
Did you go on a detox?
Oh, yes, major. And it was nasty and gross and not fun at all.
How did you go on a detox?
Well, number one, I reverse engineered their entire stratagem, because in order for nanotech to replicate, it has to be coupled with a signal or a form of energy. So I built myself a Faraday cave. The Faraday cave is outlined in this Targeted to Free, Love is the Answer, My Story. This is a 6-hour DVD, part 1 of 2. You will learn how Sister Keri gathered the facts, assessed what was happening to her, how I shielded myself both physically and spiritually, how you'll hear actual testimonies from my team, and we'll have Sister Keri's toolbox of remedies used to empower me, to raise my vibration, to comfort myself in the fact-gathering stage. The fact-gathering stage is so important because you need to know exactly what's happening. You don't want to spend $2,000 on a Faraday cave if you don't have to spend that much. Find out what signals in your body, and then you'll know what fabrics or things to purchase. Her faith is faith-based, yet accommodates a universal audience. So this DVD is part 1 of a part 2 series, and this is now available on video streaming for those who are not antiquated, who don't just do DVDs. And so this is part 1. Part 2, it nearly killed me to get this stuff done. Part two, this came out. It's on pre-order status for the DVD right now, but the streaming is available on clergyvictim.com. Go down to the hashtag targeted to free. Part two of two, you will learn the methods that Sister Keri used to cleanse her body of weaponized military-grade nanotechnology and how she maintains her healing as described in her doctor's report. A total turnaround in results. So I went back 6 months later, and the doctor said, I can't believe it, but you have no signals going off on in your body anymore.
But please take us through just a little bit, just briefly, about what happened, how you noticed that you had these reactions, and then you took action, and then what happened? How did you cleanse yourself and you don't have the problems anymore, right?
Exactly. No, I still have to do rigorous things, okay? I still have to maintain, I have to do saunas, I have to eat properly. You got to be careful because obviously God healed me, but I have to sustain the healing too. I can't slack.
So it was a microchip that caused this, or a biological weapon, frequencies, nanotechnology, what?
Nanotechnology. Microchip was what happened to my uncle. That's the old stuff.
Right. And they don't need to use chips anymore?
Nope. All they have to do is introduce your body to nanotechnology. In my case, it was weaponized military grade, which basically means...
Which is frequencies beamed to your body, or what? Like HARP?
Pretty much, but HARP is for everybody. But the stuff that was exclusive to me, I actually have the signals isolated by a sonic weapons engineer, and he gave me the table where the ranges and the frequencies were and for what purposes for me.
So those frequencies are being beamed from where to you, to your body?
In my case, the person was caught.
It was a specific person that orchestrated this biological attack on you.
Yes, there was more than one. There was more than one, and there was multiple countries involved. North Korea was involved.
Okay. Can you just say briefly why you think they did that? Just for experimentation?
The way they've always done things to me, especially dealing with regards to the court case, their whole modus operandi was to make me out to be a nut job. That was their purpose. Well, nobody knew about nanotech back then. You know what I'm saying? Nanotech, if I went up to you 5 years ago even 5 years ago and said, hey brother, I think I got nanotech, nanobots in my body, most people would look at you sideways like, what's going on, right? So their purpose was to dismantle my credibility, cause me to go insane, because the level of pain, it isn't fun. I might be happy and cheerful now, and that's because of God, okay? But the point is, when you go through this stuff, it is extraordinarily painful. 5 years on the run.
How did you react?
It was painful. It's extremely painful. Blood coming out of your ears. I won't even get into it. It's so gross.
Well, in order to really talk a little bit about what it is, to expose it, we have to explain just to some kind of, to a certain extent, what is happening. It doesn't luckily happen to everybody.
No, it doesn't. No, this stuff was designed very purposefully, on purpose, to have me develop. I had, the testing showed back leukemia, breast cancer.
Did you have that?
I had been dispersed with a biological agent that is supposed to give it to me, give me cancer, give me colon cancer.
Colon cancer?
Yes, and leukemia. And then they gave me rabbit fever, and I was attacked 9 times. It wasn't just once.
How can they attack people with this biological weapon, and how long does it take for that to attack the body and for the body to react?
In my case, it was programmed to have me dead within a 30 to 45 day period.
30 to 40 days you were supposed to be dead? Absolutely.
It's accelerated. It's very fast for me. The nanotech that's coming out of the clouds and stuff like that now, you know, with the geoengineering, that takes time. It'll saturate your body over time, and then you'll hear, you know, tinnitus sounds, and you'll have problems with your body. Your organs will start to shut down, but that takes time to happen.
So it's a certain machine placed somewhere that somebody is orchestrating that are beaming these frequencies to a certain, how do they reach you, for example, and not a friend of yours sitting next to you? having dinner.
Good point. Okay, well, there's many different ways that can happen, but in my case, the materials, the nanomaterials were placed in my body under the auspices of surgery. The signal can be deployed through satellite, through planes, through someone sitting out of your house with an LRAD.
Because they implanted a receiver in your body and then they transmitted the frequencies. Like a mobile phone, there's no cord when we call each other.
That's right, absolutely. So, and they're very specific. It's very, very specific. It's not like, oh, well, no, if they're going to target you, it's very specific to you, not to everybody else on the street, So
it's important for people not to get confused about how it's taking place, how it's happening.
Exactly. And in my case, I'm going to read this to you because I feel like this will help you connect some dots too. This is from the sound weapons expert that I was mentioning, and I hired a security firm to, just watch over me and find out. I said, listen, guys, I'm probably nuts. You tell me, but I feel like someone's outside and they're frying my brain and it hurts. And I stood here for 6 days praying, but now I'm in tears and it hurts.
You had a security team or a security guy that you hired?
I had to. I absolutely had to.
Did you have money when you came out of the Catholic Church and your years from being a nun?
Dirt poor. Dirt poor. When you leave the Roman Church, they don't give you anything. They don't give you anything. I was trying to find. Bottom line, let me just address this issue right up now. Okay. When I left the convent, I was dirt poor. I was sitting on the floor. I think I was in 2010 or something. And I asked God, why am I poor? I'm a good person. I don't understand. I'm 33 years old. I don't understand. How come I don't have money? And God said, sweetheart, you have been studying the treasures of heaven. You never studied the treasures of the earth. So I said, are you telling me it's not too late? I asked God that. And God said, it's not too late. I said, oh, well, in that case, he says, what moves your heart? What do you want to do? Don't think of the money. Think of what you want to do. And I said, I want to know the truth about the law. Immediately, I went from making nothing to opening a ministry that's completely tax-free, to taking on clients for free, winning their cases, getting them out of jail, getting them out of prison. All of this is documented. I'd have to go through my archives to get it all.
So you became a lawyer?
Well, not with a bar card. Just someone who studies this sort of thing. And in America, we have our own, we can do different things here in America.
But I just want to get back to your conversation with God there. How did you have that conversation? Was that in your head, or how did you, this
it's in my heart. It's in my heart because I was angry. I was sitting there and I'm like, I don't understand this.
So did you hear his voice, or how do you process?
It's in my heart. It's something inside of you that you just know. It's like, when you're talking to God,
Like a clairvoyant speaking or getting information from a different dimension?
Getting information like a download. Getting information and it was filled with hope. It wasn't just data.
So couldn't it just be you with everything that you have inside of you, which is probably some very great talent?
We believe that the Holy Spirit's inside of us if we accept Christ, right? So we've got Christ, we're baptized, okay? So when I take place in this dialogue, I'm believing I'm dialoguing with the Holy Spirit within. But you're right, absolutely. So now, going back to this issue, because people say, well, she had money, she was a nun, there's got to be something twisted about all this. Okay, I had money when I didn't use my real name. I had money when I went around under different aliases, and I did all of these. I had 13 or I don't know how many aliases I had. And I opened up many different things, and I had I had a lot of funding, okay, because I operated that way.
A real nun on the run, huh?
The nun on the run to the nun with the smoking gun. We are going to talk about the Jesuits in a second.
Right.
Now, another thing, I used to, here's one of the aliases. I'll put one of my aliases out there. I used to work with a guy, former IRS agent. And so we worked together with my alias, Nectaria. And the purpose for working with him was, okay, they're going to try to put these elderly people in jail, and that ain't right, for just messing up on a stupid form. And I say on the back of the card, with God, all things are possible. Quote the Bible. And so I had money when I worked under different aliases and did all these things to do as much as I could to help people in truth, you know, with helping them with their remedies, with what's going on in their controversies in life. But the second I came out with my real name and told the story about what happened to me regarding the nanotech, regarding all of this other stuff, all my ability to make funding has been jacked up. Okay? So people say, well, she had a lot of money. She was a nun, and maybe there's something going on with that.
So why did you come out with all of this information? Because
in all reality, I made a promise in October 2 years ago. I made a promise to God, and I said, you know what? If you're allowing me to live, there has to be a reason for that. And if you want me to get the story out and teach people, show them point for point without hiding it, show them how to get out of being targeted.
You wanted justice as well.
At this stage in the game right now, I tried to reach justice with attorneys, but my attorneys were all either beat with baseball bats, presumably the people they thought was my attorney went straight after him. I tried. I have lawyers' letters. I have attorneys' letters all throughout these documents. And there is, right now, our system is so broken that a case that's so black and white like mine can't be heard in a court. I'm not aware that we have those remedies available at this time. So now here's the deal. I made the promise to God, because everybody right now is going to be tethered to an AI system, and they're going to use nanotechnology in order to do that.
And we want to get into that also, but we need to just hear a little bit more about your experiences when you felt that you had become a targeted individual, and what was your journey from becoming targeted and having a very rough time, and what happened there, to getting rid of it.
Okay, I'll share this with you because this is part of the sound weapons analysis that came through, and it says here, subject's address is confirmed to be targeted by multiple frequencies combined within a complex combination of delivery waveforms. The waveforms targeting the area are both HIFU and LFU that appear to be modulated to deliver some form of data, as the packets that are encoded in the modulation are sweeping across frequencies and repeat at regular intervals. It is my assertion that there is some sort of message being delivered. However, I personally experienced the pain, anxiety, and paranoia associated with the delivery at the target site. In my professional experience, those feelings are the simplest form of torture associated with these sorts of weapons. I do contend the use of a weapon in this case. He says further, it is essentially impossible to claim the existence of the observed frequencies and waves to be an anomalous event or by accident. It is my opinion the observed phenomena is purposely deployed. Further, he says, the megahertz, the kilohertz, and he says, important here to for transcranial pulses to pass to the brain tissue. And then he says, this was a puzzling frequency set. I observed it present in every reading. After thinking about it, it was similar to LRAD for LRAD use. And bottom line, this was very, very painful. So when I was going through these experiences, there's a bunch of symptoms. You can go on my video on Sister Keri Burnor on YouTube and type in Jesus defeats nanotech, and I list all the symptoms, or the symptoms will show up on that video.
Well, can you mention a few of it to us?
Yes. Well, when I got out of the surgery, it felt like I had some sort of either the hives, or it was a reaction. And the skin raises with red, and it burns, and it's painful, and it's itchy, and it didn't stop for like several weeks. And I yelled at the hospital. I said, "You guys didn't clean the sheets. You got bed bugs or something." And I said, "You need to give me some cream so I could fix this." And they're like, so they gave me the creams, and that still didn't fix it. But years later, I figured it out. Oh, well, yeah, that's because the nanotechnology it's surrounded by a viral envelope, and the virus was what was infecting me, and I was having an infection.
So could you also feel it in your brain or in your head?
Everywhere. the whole body is like tormented. It's hell. It's actually, if you go to hell.
Well, did you become dizzy or feel a pressure or?
Absolutely. Dizziness, pressure, vertigo, can't sleep, overheating. So basically, why am I sick all the time? I eat organic, quote unquote organic. There's no such thing, but I didn't understand why I was sick. It didn't make any sense.
There is no such thing as something organic, food or what?
There is no such thing. Everything that is now, is available now, it has nanotech in the food.
All of it, you think?
Well, there are people now learning how to grow their food so it doesn't have nano in it, okay?
So even the organic food that you buy in supermarkets and everywhere else has nanotech inside of that?
That is correct, because they don't have the food tested at the nano level.
How can anybody measure that?
There are tests. You can go and get Raman spectroscopy, FTIR, EDS, a whole bunch of things you could do to test for all that sort of thing. And our labs do that, but I have the service mark for that, for no nano certifications. But like I said, if I come out with my real name and I tell everybody the real story, what happened to me, because I made a promise to God, and I know all mankind is on the brink of extinction if we don't do something now, okay? This whole AI thing is very, very serious. This nanotechnology, you know what? I'm going to get through this and then I'm going to read to you. Remind me, please, if I forget, to read you the FOIA response from the Department of Defense. Okay, I'm going to read you what they're telling me. But anyway, let's go back to this. I was suspicious of a sinus surgery July 2011 in a Christian hospital because my specimens came back on the pathology report and it showed an unknown doctor in the bottom corner of this document. I didn't allow any unknown doctors to be present in my surgery. So I confronted the doctor. I didn't judge him. I just said, listen, I'm concerned. Why is there an unknown doctor listed here? And he said, well, you have to talk to so-and-so. I've worked in this hospital for over 35 years and I've never seen that before.
And you were already suspicious.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So here's what you're looking for. Researching online symptoms, conclusion, microwave exposure. So I'm going to read a few of these, okay? This is what you're looking for as far as symptomology. General symptoms, okay. Neurological, headaches, dizziness, nausea, difficulty concentrating, memory loss, irritability, depression, anxiety, insomnia, fatigue, weakness, tremors, muscle spasms, numbness, tingling, altered reflexes, muscle and joint pain, leg, foot pain, flu-like symptoms, fever. More severe reactions can include seizures, paralysis, psychosis, and stroke. Cardiac, palpitations, arrhythmias, pain and pressure in the chest, low or high blood pressure, slow or fast heart rate, shortness of breath. Respiratory, sinusitis, bronchitis, pneumonia, asthma. Dermatological, skin rash, itching, burning, facial flushing. Ophthalmologic, pain and burning in the eyes, pressure and behind the eyes, deteriorating vision, floaters, cataracts. Others, digestive problems, abdominal pain, enlarged thyroid, testicular, ovarian pain, dryness of lips, tongue, mouth, eyes, great thirst, dehydration, nosebleeds, internal bleeding, altered sugar metabolism, immune system abnormalities, redistribution of metals within the body, hair loss, pain in teeth, deteriorating fillings, impaired sense of smell, ringing in the ears. It goes on and on. No Place to Hide, Volume 3, Number 1, special issue on Russian-Ukrainian research by Arthur Furstenberg.
But now you almost listed all sorts of diseases that a human being can actually have. So don't you think that if a lot of people hear about just one of the things that you mentioned there, that they think, oh my God, maybe I'm a targeted individual?
Well, that's where you would get the testing done as is specified. I teach people how I did it on this first DVD to figure out what's going on with me. And in the end, when they watch this and they do all the questionnaires, you interview yourself. You take the documents, print them out, and interview yourself. Go get the information, then you'll find out, okay, maybe I have this problem, but I don't have that. And I give my private investigator, I give the acting private investigator, I interview her on here. A lot of good, juicy stuff on here. So basically, more along this line, I did urine toxicity testing, and there were high metals that were abnormal, like gadolinium and cadmium. It didn't even make sense. Uranium, why were these things so high? Then I went and did a retest on hair, And, strange things were going on in that arena. So I just figured, okay, let's just keep all the data and let's see what kind of picture we can make. Then I purchased a machine to be able to detect if frequencies were coming out of my head. And as you could see here, this is not a sunburn. This is microwave exposure, burning me to a crisp.
And that is you on the picture.
Absolutely. And that actually shows all the way in the red. So I was microwaved and burning from the inside out.
And where do you, and I don't know if we can see the whole picture, but you're red on that picture. Is that it or what?
Yeah, my neck was all red, my face, my fingers, everything was burning. It was not fun at all. And so I purchased the machine to the equipment. And the reason I also did that was so when I build my Faraday cave, I could tell if it's going to work. So if I go in my cave and there's no signal, aha, my cave is working. And believe it or not, it looked ugly as sin. But Faraday Cave is described how I built it in here. And in the extras folder is the document showing the materials I used to build the thing.
What is that? Yes.
It's just, it's a little crawl space where you can go in when you sleep and you're not being bombarded with signals. Because if nanotech needs a signal, in my case it needed specific signals in order to replicate. If I starve the signal, the nano will break up in my body while I'm sleeping and doing the cleanses and using all these other therapies, okay? So you have to starve the body of the things
fasting,
that require,
you mean?
Well, starve the body of the frequencies. You don't want frequencies.
Okay.
But you can fast if you want. I've done fasts and cleanses too, but I show people how I did it because you don't want to strip your body down. You want to strengthen your body while you're cleansing the toxins out.
So how can you shield your body?
You can, and the optimal thing to do is while you're sleeping, okay? So let me show you what I mean. All right. Everyone's going to have their own specific needs, okay? And it's not a one-size-fits-all, but essentially the concept is this is the copper wire mesh. This is some of the stuff I used in my later, my Faraday caves. Because when I was on the run, I had to take these things with me. I had to have a way to shield myself.
So is this like what people are saying, really sarcastically and making fun of people saying that they're wearing a tinfoil hat? Exactly.
Now, and there's wonderful, lessemf.com sells those hats and things like that, but they're
really?
But they're classy. They're not the ones that make you look like normal hats, okay? But they're shielded.
So you do believe in tinfoil hats?
Well, I believe in specific, not tin foil, but specific metals for each one's going to have a different need, okay?
So it's not just a ridiculous myth and just to make fun of people who are into truth seeking.
Well, I think it's good for both causes. It's always fun to, have a little fun with these things. But this here is radiant barrier. You can get this at Home Depot, okay? This is typical things you can use for insulation. That is another thing that's been very helpful in reducing signals. But again, like I said, if you're a targeted individual, they're not going to just attack you in a general way. They're going to attack you specifically with specific signals. So in the intake form, you're going to figure that out. You're going to go to the people that do the testing, and you're going to figure out, okay, this is the frequency. See, I spent $2,000 on shielding alone because I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to do all this stuff. So I just said, let's throw all the spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. Nowadays, when my uncle was going through this, I said, Uncle, you're not spending $2,000 on shielding. Let me talk to the person who did your scan. And I spoke with the professional, the TSCM guy, the measures guy, technical surveillance countermeasure guy. And I talked to him, and he's a professional. And I said, listen, can you give me the frequency range of the frequency my uncle is being attacked with? And he gave me the frequencies, because in my uncle's case, it wasn't just a quick, like a microwave. This was a bursting technology that would come. so that if one tried to test my uncle, the signal wouldn't show up unless you caught it at the right time. And there's specific testing for that. It's far more complicated now. The technology that was used on me is one thing.
But they placed something in your body. They put something in there, right?
Yeah, they put the nanotech in that, and there's an incision here, okay?
So are they still there in your body, or did you cleanse it?
I cleansed it, but it's like a broken equipment. It doesn't function anymore. So it doesn't function. But now with my uncle's thing, the cool thing is I was able to help him make a Faraday so he didn't have to spend $2,000 because I talked to the TSCM guy and he gave me the range of the frequency so I could call up my other people and say, okay, I need a fabric or a material that can block this, and this frequency. Can you give it to me? Boom. I saved him thousands of dollars on that. So why I'm being so specific is because one size doesn't fit all, but I will say these things are still kind of cool. They help, but they're not going to be the be-all, end-all for targeted individuals. You have to be diligent in your work. If you want to heal, you have to be diligent. And I teach you how. On the CDs, the DVDs.
So how did you get rid of the nanotech in your body?
You have to sit, I had to sit in a sauna for an hour a day for 4 months, okay? And that means I had to sit in there with electrolyte water. I had to make sure all that had ice in it because I didn't want the plastic melting, the BPA, all that stuff free. But when I sat in that sauna, I had a whole rigorous protocol. And it was 75 pills a day. I had specific things I had to eat at specific times. And again, everybody's attacks are going to be different and everyone's needs are going to be different.
75 pills a day.
That's the problem. When Dr. Hildy worked with me on this protocol, she used to be able to manufacture her products. As soon as she took me on as a client, they shut her down after 30-something years. 30 years of manufacturing, and they shut her down. They wouldn't make her the products anymore because of me. And that's in her affidavit. She stipulated that on the record.
She was the regular doctor.
She was a toxicologist. She's the one that's an expert in the field of nanotech. And all these people say, and there's documents saying that we don't have documents regarding her credentials yet. That's precisely what these guys do. I know her credentials. I have them. The woman says what she says about herself is true. And obviously the proof is in the pudding.
So she gave you 75 pills.
I purchased 5 or 4 briefcases full of herbs, and I took them every day for 4 to 6 months.
So organic pills, herbal, not chemical pills, big pharma pills.
No, I would have been dead by now. Absolutely.
It would sound like that with 75 pills.
No, 75 capsules minimum a day.
So that helped.
Big time, because it was breaking up the materials at the chemical level, and when it's breaking it up, it's like destroying the radio. So the signal could try to come, but it's broken up because the plastics are being sweat out of your body, and other ways it comes out. And so all of this to say is, it's not fun, but if you're determined and you follow the protocols and you learn exactly what's happening to you, you know what's going on, then you can turn it around. You have to reverse engineer it though.
But how do you know that you are a targeted individual? I mean, of course, you described all these terrible things that you felt that happened to you and you went through in your body. You could really feel it and whatnot. But you practically listed all the major diseases that people can have on the list. And how should people understand, okay, maybe I'm a targeted individual. What should I do then?
That's where you would do specific testing with specific parameters, because like I said, anyone could have low blood pressure, dizziness, vertigo, right? But the second you go and you get these tests that are outlined on this DVD, when those tests come back to you, there's no mistake. It's black and white in your face. It's like, yes, you've got nanotechnology in your body, and here's the frequency.
Where can you get tested?
That's all in-house information. I used to just say all the names of all the people, and now I can't do that because of the safety of the people doing these. Melinda Kidder no longer offers, from Columbia Investigation, she no longer offers the testing because...
So if people are listening to this from around the world in different countries, not just in America, how should they search for that kind of help? How can they find people who specifically are skilled enough to do these tests for them?
TSCM, Technical Surveillance Countermeasures, you can type that in. You can type in, trying to think here what the name of the test is. But basically the TSCM is a good, big picture to start there. Yep. TSCM, Technical Surveillance Countermeasures. Yes, that's it. So, bottom line, so that's, those are some of the symptoms. And like I said, when you get those tests and they come back, it's black or white. It's a black or white issue. And then you can move on from there and be like, oh, thank God I'm not targeted. I need to go to an endocrinologist, or I need to look into my digestion or what have you. But if you have a combination of those things, like 10 or 12 of them going on all at once, 9 out of 10, you're going to be dealing with something different.
What about a body cleanse? Maybe you can talk about a very good detox.
Well, that's the thing. I hesitate into getting into a lot of that for the reasons that everyone's needs are different. And so, because if I tell someone, oh, well, everybody needs to go to a sauna. Well, what if someone has hyperthyroidism? That person can't be going in a sauna. They have to take ice packs and put it over their thyroid. See, everything is specific. There is no one size fits all. So what I do for those people who are targeted is I go in, and we could sit here for 12 hours, but that's what I did on the DVD. I basically go through 6 hours a piece on each DVD set, and I go through all the different scenarios that one would have to, or all the scenarios that I knew of or know of at the time.
What kind of detox did you go on?
That's more along the lines that I can answer. That is, I did several different cleanses. I would use the Tony Pantalleresco stuff at different times, which is the Herbs Plus Beads work, which is free on YouTube, he has this disgusting product you can buy. It's called sodium thiosulfate. You want to be in your house, not going to work, and not near others when you're doing these cleanses, okay? You're not going to get a lot of friends when you do these cleanses. It's not fun, trust and believe. The other ones that when you do a cleanse, you want to make sure you're not putting like harmful lotions on and things like that. So I went into Tony Pantalleresco's Herbs Plus Beads work, and I learned how he made lotion, and I make my own lotion, so I know that there's no nano in there. There's the triangle, there's the anti-nano bucket, and I show my results, the actual physical results, showing how much nano came off to the surface of the water, because what it does is it's a DC current that's being utilized with the bucket. And when you're running magnetism and a DC current at the same time, it causes the nanotechnology to become tricked. It's like tricking the programming. And once it's tricked, then it starts to release out of the body because there's no charge. All these other things where people say, well, you need to use a TEMS unit, that creates a charge. When someone has nanotech, you don't want them to be charged. You want them to be grounded.
What about natural juicing, like juicing vegetables and fruits and stuff, like ginger and turmeric? And
I'm in agreement with all of that. Totally in agreement, but again, you're going to have to look at Tony Pantalleresco's websites and look at how he teaches you how to clean the nanotech out of the juicing that you do. He shows you how to remove the nanotech out of go and get your blender or your smoothies or what have you. Still enjoy these things, but cleanse them out first so you're not putting more in as you're cleansing. You don't want to put more in, right?
Which could happen according to you.
Yeah, you can reseed yourself, but not. I mean, it's different. Food grade nanotech is one thing. Military grade nanotech is another. But if you're suffering from any form of it, you still want to keep that out. Keep it out of your body. I have the service mark for no nano certifications for all foods, drinks, products, textiles, pet products, you name it. So whether it's sunscreens or what have you. So you can't get a patent on something or a service mark unless it's real. And so these are the things that need to get done. And like I said, I'm a one-woman show here, you know. So, you know, all I'm going to tell you is in good time, those things are going to come out. We're going to get that thing up and running so people can start, you know, farms can start to reach out to us and say, hey, do our chickens have nano in their eggs? Does our cattle, you know, our beef have nano in them? And if so, how can we fix these things? And then they'll have a certification mark on the side, just like the organic symbol, but it will say no nano certifications with the little R next to it, the registered mark. So we're working on all these projects, okay? But if anyone wants to contribute or help me out, I am in need, okay? Go to Christ of All Hermitages and send a donation.
Is that your website?
Yes, yes. Now, the other thing, on this second DVD, I started to go into it, and I'm going to finish this part up here. It says, a total turnaround in results, having no activated signals, how I put together a report that I believe contributed largely to my enjoying a special protected status today. I put a report together, and it's this big. Don't be disheartened. It's only because I was hit 9 times with this stuff, but it's this big. And it went to Trump, and when Trump received it, he put me under protected status in late 2016.
How do you know that?
That was confirmed later through, let's just say, certain operatives, okay?
Really? And you know that for sure?
I know that for sure. I know that absolutely for sure. It's been confirmed by multiple sources. In addition to, I haven't had a nano attack since then. I've had to literally, I've been attacked 9 times with nano dispersals in my hospital, in my hotel rooms, to nano dispersal by way of nano air vehicles over my house in November of 2016.
But you cleansed yourself from all of this, so now it's after Trump got this major file or that you were just showing?
Absolutely.
And how did that even reach him?
That's where I had a contact that has a direct line.
And why would he protect you in particular?
Now that's a good question. And if he did, I believe it's by God's hand. God is allowing Trump to do this for me because I don't know him personally. Why would he care?
So it's not just because you're a Trump supporter. I guess you are.
I couldn't even vote. I was on the run.
But do you believe in the political system?
I believe right now in what God is doing. I believe in what God is doing right now. And people are waking up all over the place. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And we are partakers in that, in the unfolding of our life.
So AI is the big threat. And also 5G, what we're seeing happening at the moment. And I think to sum up the whole thing today, I think we should just talk for a little moment about what you think is the purpose for AI and 5G, and how can we shield ourselves from that, from those frequencies?
Okay, the purpose for AI, and the way I understand it, is that all right, I'm going to go to the document that I cited on my YouTube channel. This was when, and it's probably up to 340-something thousand views now, but it's called Nano-Domestic Quell. And this is the document I showed on the video. You probably already saw the video. And when I saw this document, I was researching it in the year 2013, and I was just looking around to see what is nanotechnology. I was trying to learn more about it, and this document showed up from a man named Bill Weld. Bill Weld has a website, Dr. Bill Weld, and he was publishing this. And what it says is Nano-Domestic Quell, and this is by the Department of Defense up here, okay? And people say, well, this isn't by the Department of Defense. They're saying this is not from them, but we'll get there. I'm going to show you some strange things that ended up happening, and then my correspondence to the Department of Defense about this, okay? Nano-Domestic Quell protocols for Phase 4, DTFN estimated rates in Phase 4 updated compliance for NDQ, Nano-Domestic Quell. Current total infections rate for the United States general population is 87.2% at that time. That's 2013. Projected infection for general U.S. populace by January 2014 is estimated to reach 98%. Total infection for ages 18 and above may reach 99%. DTFN projects dispersal mediums will require additional resources for phase 4 of NDQ. DTFN recommends an increase in the following medium inflows and outflows specific to liquid dispersal. Pepsi Cola 9.9%, Nestle ADR 8.5%, Chicago, Atlanta Municipal, Danone, Coca-Cola, Los Angeles Municipal, Seattle Municipal, and it goes on with their percentages. Dispersal outflows have shown significant improvement in population infection rates. That causes deep alarm here. Dispersal outflows have shown significant improvement in population infection rates. Recommended inflow increases deployed in October 2012 resulted in a net increase of infection rates by 0.82%, slightly exceeding projections. DTFN assures DoD compliance for phase 4 would be completed 1 week ahead of schedule. No further recommendations have been submitted by DTFN for phase 5, and expected update to outflow estimated rates will be forthcoming before phase 5 initialization. Now, phase 5 is what I believe would be the coupling of the 5G, okay? That's what I believe this was about, and in addition to terahertz and other forms of weaponry, signal weaponry. So what I did was I wrote to the Department of Defense and I asked them about this very document, and I asked them, and I know if it were real, they can't tell me it's real if it was classified, but if it's been declassified, then they could tell me. So I said, I'd like to learn more about, what this is, and if in fact this is a DoD document. And then this is what they wrote back to me. Dear Ms. Burnor, we received your Freedom of Information Act request 16 January 2019 seeking all records pertaining to any programs relating to the use of nanotechnology in foods or municipal water supplies from the years 1 January 2013 through 16 January 2019. Your request is being processed in accordance with Title V USC 552, the Freedom of Information Act and Privacy Act, and here's the clincher, Executive Order 13526. Executive Order 13526 is alluding to, we can't give you documents if they're still classified. However, we're going to find out what was declassified that's connected to these programs, and then we'll get you that documentation. Okay? The actual processing time for these documents will depend upon consultation with other DoD components, stateside, overseas, and other agencies, etc. So that's the DoD. That's the Department of Defense writing me this letter, and they're not denying that nanotechnology in foods or water supplies, they're not denying anything. They're saying, let me look into it and let me see what's not classified.
So in the bigger picture, what is their purpose for implementing AI, artificial intelligence, and of course 5G all over the world now in the population on Earth?
If everyone has nanobots in their bloodstream and they don't even know it, and then they deploy this 5G, well, it's already harmful. The 5G alone, just in and of itself and by itself, has destroyed the eggs and ovum in women alone. That's just one test. But if they continue to do it, the whole deployment of the 5G is to cause the nano that's inert, that's in people's bodies now through Coca-Cola, Danone, and all. And I verified this from a secondary source to see if this document crazy? Is it real? Well, I can tell you that they outline facts in here, that Pepsi and that Coca-Cola on their own website says that there's nanotechnology in their Coca-Cola. They don't lie. They tell you it's there.
They say that. They say that publicly.
Absolutely. It's on their website. And I put it on my video. Look up Sister Keri Burnor on YouTube and you'll see I put it right into the camera. Then it says here, Danone and Nestle. So I looked it up, www.centerforfoodsafety.org, and they do testing on all the foods that go through. They're trying to get a list. What foods have nanotech in it? It showed up with Nestle. It showed up with Danone. Danone. It showed up. Coca-Cola did their own. They didn't have to be in that website. So.
But this is certainly not something that you can read on the etiquette when you see that in the supermarket and you take it down and look for E numbers and stuff like that.
They don't have any requirement in the United States to label nano on anything. They don't have any requirement. In the EU, they do. But here they don't. Obviously, there's a reason for that. So the purpose is that, okay, once you got little nanobots and now you got your 5G coupled with the nanobots, now those nanobots get activated and then they replicate. And they basically use your own body as a battery, a methodology, a battery to actually complete the process of replicating more nano throughout your entire body to the point where you're saturated.
And the goal for the, let's say, the New World Order or whoever is behind implementing AI on this global scale is to be influential on the human mind. It's a form of collective mind control. Is that it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Talk about a solution, a possible solution for people, what they can do.
Bottom line, our remedy above all of the physical things we can do, because this is a spiritual problem, it's not just a physical one, is getting close to God, is taking time out, praying, becoming centered, becoming connected to the divine. Okay, that's the number one remedy. And I know for a fact there's no way I could have ever gotten through what I went through without that. All right, so that's number one, first and foremost.
And it could also be people connecting a little bit more with themselves. Yes,
and the true singularity is the relationship we already have with humanity, right? And they're trying to destroy that and then supplant that with an artificial connection. I mean, so that people are connecting, like I said, into this other realm, and there's no human relationships anymore, which is the very first thing we talked about was relationship and connecting and sexuality and all of that. They're trying to cut us off from our true selves, and that's the beginning of Satanism right there. That's the beginning, cutting us off from our purpose. We were created for a purpose, and that is to enjoy this life, you know, with God, in fellowship with Him and other human, our human family, and then to take this relationship and carry it over into the next world. So the remedy is absolutely to just immerse, connect more with others, connect with yourself, pray, get connected.
And people can contact you via your website.
It's clergyvictim.com, www.clergyvictim.com, transforming victims into victors, and that streaming online and DVD will be available. DVD's on pre-order status now, and you just go on and you click the link to order it, and we will be on this other side, and we'll take your order and we'll process that. But everybody needs Part 2 DVD, because when this stuff starts to activate or whatever, any of this stuff, you will have the means and the wherewithal to learn how to dismantle that.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's been absolutely fascinating and incredible to hear your story. It's been really exciting and also mind-blowing to have you on the show, and it's been really great. So thank you very much, Keri Burnor, for doing this interview for Age of Truth TV. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. God bless you and all of you.
Thank you, and you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We thank you all very much for watching Age of Truth TV. You can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv. And please hit the bell, subscribe to our channel, and like the videos. Your support is needed and greatly appreciated. Thank you now for watching, and see you again very soon.